This episode is proudly sponsored by Martha Mock and Super Confident Coaching, superconfidentcoaching.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Guest Speaker Wednesday. It is a day where you can get wisdom, learn a few things to help you to navigate life as a woman over 40. And today's topic is about burnout. Hey, as a woman over 40, we have been through a few of those. Even I have to say, 1 year when I was first starting my online business, it was so overwhelming that I said in my brain, there's oh, no more. 11 bookings per day is a lot. And I can hear it and I can feel it. But a lot of the times, we had that feeling inside our heart, thinking that, oh, but if I don't do, I feel A, B, C, D, E. So today we're going to talk with an expert, Jasmine, here to help us to navigate that burnout period. How do we actually catch ourselves? How do we actually make ourselves feel better during that stage? And how to put ourselves first. So I wanted to introduce our guest today. Hi, Jasmine. Thank you
Hi,
so much
how
for
are
coming
you,
on
Martha?
with us. Please tell us a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so I'm Jasmine, also known as the Healing One, and I am the owner and CEO of I Am Healing One. And that is literally the affirmation that I believe in, that I stand for, and it sometimes is what I do. Really, I'm always healing me with the knowledge that I've gained, and then I share that and reflect that back to other amazing people to help them heal them. So I am always healing one. And what that looks like in a little bit more detail is I've got 20 years in counseling, wellness, and spirituality. I've worked with catastrophic injuries, mental health, you name it, I've worked it because I really spent my time going through the spectrum of experiences, wanting to understand people so that I could best serve. And now that looks like me being a clinical hypnotherapist, a wellness practitioner, and then I have the fortune of training other wellness practitioners as well. So I get to do a few little things.
Oh, that sounds amazing. See, why that do we have this space here for everyone? It's because that we only invite the best of the best in their field to help you to navigate life.
Yeah.
As we all know, life could be challenging and difficult, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be the end of the day. So let's
Yeah.
talk about burnout. Like it
Yeah.
is so tough. I find that like when okay, I'm a complete workaholic. So when I'm
Okay.
working, I feel amazing. I feel like that I'm back on myself. But I have to agree that my body is not running as fast as my head. So
Mm-hmm.
how do we identify that we are experiencing burnout?
So that's going to look a little different for each person, right? And it really is an internal process to figure out what it looks like because it's not only physical and it's not only cognitive. It's really a full being experience, right? So you might start to feel some brain fog. You might start to feel a little bit more forgetful than usual without any medical reasons to explain that, right? You might start to feel more aches and pains in your body because your body's trying to signal you like, hey, I need a little help. Slow down. You might start to feel lethargic because maybe you're just not getting as much rest during the nighttime. Your brain is always trying to process, and squirrels are running around and chasing each other. And so your brain is not resting, which means your body's not resting at night when you're sleeping, which leads to lethargy during the daytime. That could look like a little bit of confusion, right? You ever had that moment when you're in a conversation and it's going, and you're like, yeah, and it's flowing. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, just forgot what I was about to say.
Mm,
And we like to think, I just had 1,000 things in mind, but sometimes that's literally our self kicking in to say, hey, warning, danger, pay attention to me. Your eating habits could change. And you might either start noticing that you're eating for comfort, trying to satiate a different feeling, right? You might start to notice that you're not eating as much. And so then your weight starts to be affected. You can lose weight, you can gain weight. And again, if there's not a medically noticeable reason, then you want to pay attention to that. Could be irritability. Maybe you're typically a happy-go-lucky person or very well put together. And now you're feeling like instead of being here and more balanced, your emotions are right here. And the littlest thing that somebody says or does just makes you want to snap and go, crap, snapple and pop on them.
Mm.
And it could be withdrawing.
Mm.
If you're typically a social person and you're finding yourself just saying, "Ugh, I just need some alone time to get it back together." And a lot of these things we overlook because we live in a society where now we're recognizing how prevalent depression is, how prevalent anxiety is. And so a lot of times we'll dismiss it thinking, well, it's that, and I know I already deal with that. Or I don't have a family history of that. It's not that.
Mm.
But it is our body just signaling that something is wrong because we can't keep up the pace that we're trying to occupy.
Mm.
It could be any of those things. It could be one thing. It could be noticing a cycle of mania. And this is not about mental health or mental illness, right? So we're not talking about bipolar disorder or any other labels, but you can notice a cycle of mania in yourself. Like there are some days you might shift into that workaholic because your body's chasing, your mind is chasing that hormonal release, that dopamine, that excitement.
Yeah.
And then when you're not in that and you're not getting it, and that complete feeling of depletion. And so if you're noticing that cycle, again, outside of some mental health diagnosis or family history that gives you concern or medical advice, those are signs and symptoms that you may want to really consider. Am I in burnout? And then if you start to notice it, I always suggest journaling because our recollection is not as accurate as we like to think that it is. So we'll tell ourselves, I'm fine. It was only a couple of days. And then if you really start to write it down and pay attention, sometimes we'll notice it's actually been weeks or months or years. And if you're noticing that repetitiveness, even if you get out of it for a little bit, if you can journal and write down and really pay attention over time, if you notice that it's fairly consistent, I do suggest getting with mental health support because everybody needs, safe place to talk, right? Even if there's nothing wrong. Working with them to identify and make sure that there is nothing else more emergent or deeper, and isolating those things and ruling them out, then yes, honestly looking at burnout to see, does this make sense? And if it does, then it's all about, okay, I'm acknowledging that I'm here. It's not an overnight process. Now, how do I start to address these behaviors and these symptoms so that I can change my experience and move forward through the burnout? Because it's not a thing that we just wake up and say, I'm done. I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't just change our outfit and get out of it. But when we can acknowledge it and recognize it, we can start to take active steps to heal ourselves forward through it.
That is so true because a lot of the time that I remember when I was on my first burnout that I recognized my body have something, and I think one of the hardest thing for us to open our mouth is that our closest one may not understand what we're going through. I remember that I was telling my partner that I'm feeling burned out, and he's in the military. And sometimes we would just say, like, toughen it up. That's how it is into life.
Yeah.
And I understand that as someone who has run multiple businesses myself. I understand that that sometimes you just have to toughen out. But I think that a lot of the times that when we are expressing to people who we believe that will understand us, and maybe it's not a lash out, it's not a backstab, it's just that they are sharing their own feel about it, and it sometimes shut us down into asking for professional help. So in that instant, what would you suggest us to do?
And so that's actually why I suggest getting outside help. So same military partner, they are a different breed of people because they have to be, right? They are constantly put in a situation where it is life or death. You don't have time to give into the burnout. You got to stay focused. You got to stay. So they learn how to operate, and it's still not healthy, right? But they learn how to operate in a different type of experience than we do as the general public, right? Or
Yep.
non-military. So I totally get that. But even if your partner, your spouse, your family isn't in the military, even if you, because a lot of people will ignore the signs and symptoms if they have themselves been in the military too. So aside from all those things, this is why I advocate for getting an outside person to talk to, because your friends and family, they're used to the you that gets up and goes. They're used to the you that can perform and can do all the things that they've come to expect from you through the years that you've had with them. They have this expectation and this vision of you, right? So a lot of times when you're starting to say something that doesn't match that, they can't process that. Like, no, but you're no. What do you mean you can't? No, that, and it's because they love you, but it's also because you operate in a capacity that fits the needs that they have too. So if you can't do that, well, then what are they supposed to do, right? So there's a lot going on there. But this is why I advocate for outside help, because before you can explain to them what you're experiencing and how you need their support in different ways, you've got to have safe space to talk through it yourself and figure it out. And you've got to have somebody that's a little bit more neutral that can hear what you're saying. A lot of times with my clients, that's my job. I'm safe space, I'm Switzerland, I'm neutral. And I'm going to listen. Okay. And I'm going to ask 1,000 questions. Okay. Well, what do you think about this? And what about that? Is this possible? Here's this. Consider this. And then through that communication, that's how we laser in to really determine and discern what's happening in your experience, right?
Yes.
I genuinely believe that it's not our job to tell you, it's our job to simply reflect and help you come to the answers, right? And choosing the right professional can be scary and it can be challenging. I wholeheartedly acknowledge that. And this is why you got to try different people, right? You might not get the first therapist and it be amazing. You might have to try 5 or 6, just like you got to try 5 or 6 different restaurants to find the best seafood in the city, right? So it's the same thing. We have to try, we have to interview them, we have to meet different people, and then we find that right fit. And through that conversation, through that safe space to take the mask off, take the body armor off, and just be vulnerable, that's where the answers come. And then when you get that clarity and that true understanding of what you're feeling and experiencing and what you need, this is when you start to have the conversations deeper with your partner, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, kids, parents, coworkers, employees, employers, whoever that need to know. This is when you start to have the conversations with them and say, hey, so this is what I'm experiencing. And my needs are changing. That's the big one. My needs are changing. Because if I've been used to connecting with you in this way, this is what I've programmed myself to do. So I'm going to keep doing that. So now, as the person that loves you and the person that supports you as your bestie, as your wife, as your husband, whoever, now you have to now train me to see what has to change. How do I need to shift and pivot as you shift and pivot so that we can continue to create this experience, right? Because as your needs change, your engagement with each person has to change.
Yeah.
And we have to be able to communicate that. And that's the scary part too, because what if they judge me? What if they reject me? What if
Yes.
they get upset? What if they leave? You know?
That is some of the fear that a lot of people have.
And so we have to, this is where that safe space comes in. As we change, and this is with burnout, healing, manifesting anything, as we change, everything around us is going to change. It has to respond, right? So as we change, we have to have that safe space again to unmask and be vulnerable and work through it, talk through it, figure it out so that we can develop the confidence in communicating what is changing and then what we need from everyone else in our life, our circles, our people.
Yes.
And when we go to them with determination and confidence and we stand our ground and honor our boundaries and say, so I'm changing. This is kind of what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I need. Then we have to trust the process that if these people, here's the caveat, if these people are supposed to continue in our experience, they're going to figure it out with us. And if they are not supposed to continue in our experience, then they're going to end up removing themselves, or we're going to make the decision to remove them. But we have to have that self-confidence and that self-awareness to stand on those boundaries and honor that, so that we don't do all this work to fix burnout and then keep letting people around us push us right back into it. You see what I mean?
Oh, wow. That is just gold right there, because you have answered so many questions that a lot of us have deep inside, but not
Mhm.
willing to actually admit it. Because it is true, that feeling was like, oh, if I tell him that I'm not feeling good, will he think that I'm crazy? Like, will he leave? Like, especially in a relationship sense, like
Mhm.
with our kids, with our parents, even they're the closest to us, but we feel like we can't talk to them. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is true. It is easier to talk to a stranger than talking to
Mhm.
someone that will know us best, because that
Yeah.
neutral part. And you are so right about the expectation of the other people on us, that they don't understand where we're coming from. And I
Yeah.
really, really love the fact that you embrace the self-confidence into setting those boundaries and in helping ourselves to heal, because that is a huge one. So what are
Mhm.
some of the ways that we can create that boundary for self-care as we're moving through that burnout stage?
So the boundaries thing is so important because, again, we train people, we teach them how to treat us.
Mm,
We teach them whether we're going to respect ourselves and honor ourselves, and whether they have to, in fact, do it as well. Or if we're not upholding that, then they can learn that they don't have to either. So
mm,
when we're working to set boundaries, first and foremost, the biggest thing is reminding yourself that it's okay to enforce them.
mm,
Boundaries are not the other person's job, they're ours. My
mm,
boundaries are the things that keep me safe. They're the things that keep me sane. They're the things that nourish me, right? And they are how we operate in life without just completely falling over. Think of your
mm.
boundary as your clothes. They keep you
Yeah.
from being naked out in public,
Okay.
right? So your boundaries are the things that reflect back to people how to engage with you.
Mm,
And your job, each of our job as the individual, is that when someone doesn't respect that boundary or honor that boundary, we have to hold them accountable and be willing to dole out the consequences. Sometimes
yes.
that's communication. Hey, let's talk about this. Okay. So this is what I said. This is kind of what's happening. We gotta work on this. Doling out the consequences may mean, okay, so I keep calling you on this and reinforcing this, and you keep just tripping all over it and stomping all over it. So now here's this consequence. And that could be creating distance between you and that person.
Mm,
So let's say they're a friend. Maybe you don't
mm,
talk to them as much or spend as much time with them.
mm,
What's the next instance? Maybe they keep stomping all over it again. Maybe now this looks like it's time to let this go.
mm,
And we have to decide, is that a conversation I want to have? Or have I talked enough and I'm done? And now my answer is just no,
mm,
nothing else to be said. Boundaries inserted. Let me keep on living my life, right?
mm,
If it's a spouse or, someone in the household, I get this a lot with parents when they're trying
mm,
to implement boundaries with kids. And so as an example, let's say there's a mom or a dad, they work all day, they're cleaning the household, they're doing all the cooking, and the kids just come in and ransack it like a zoo full of wild animals. And the boundary could be, I'm not cooking in a dirty kitchen anymore.
mm,
So if I come home and the kitchen's dirty, I'm not cooking, figure it out. And you keep coming home and the kitchen's dirty. So now the boundary says, I'm not doing it. And everybody
mm,
comes home hungry. Well, what's for dinner? I don't know. Kitchen was dirty.
mm,
That's the consequence. You don't get dinner now, right? Everybody's
mm,
old enough, thin for themselves, teenager husband or, teenagers and wife, figure it out. The
mm,
next boundary could be, if it's left out, I'm hiding it. The next
mm,
boundary could be, if it's left out, I'm throwing it away, right? We have to figure out what that looks like, but then we also have to be willing to implement it. Boundaries
mm.
mean nothing if we give lip service and then people stomp all over and then we're like, it's okay. I'll put it back. It's fine. They're gonna keep you in burnout and keep getting the benefit and you're breaking down, right?
Yeah.
And the next thing is being willing to deal with your own consequences if you don't, in fact, honor your boundaries. Because again,
Yes.
think of boundaries as your clothing. They keep you
Yeah.
safe, they keep you protected, they prevent you from being in dangerous situations, being too vulnerable, being
Yes.
uncomfortable. Right? And if we don't honor them, then what you're saying is, I'm okay continuing to stay in this pain.
Yeah.
Let's reflect that. An example would be, you've got a job and your boss is always like, oh, Tiffany, I know it's late, but I need you to work overtime another 3 hours with 30 minutes notice.
Mm.
Now, Tiffany has always said in the past, I mean, you know, I have kids, but oh, okay, fine, I'll do it. Now, Tiffany says, I'm not doing it.
Mm.
I'm leaving.
Mm.
If you need me to work overtime, then you're going to have to give me enough advance notice. I need at least 24 hours notice or whatever, right? Well, when Tiffany starts to say no,
Mm.
then boss respects that and says, okay, right? Now that's a perfect scenario. We understand Tiffany might have to have some guts and go to HR. That's a boundary because now she's implementing action steps to address the situation in which she's being untreated fairly, right? And that's a big thing when we have 9 to 5 jobs. A lot of times management doesn't care, doesn't understand, and they treat you like worker bees. And
Mm.
we've got to learn how to stand up. That boundary could be time to get a new job.
Mm.
Because if I've communicated and this isn't working and it's affecting my health and it's driving me insane and affecting my marriage and my kids and all this, it's not worth it. My boundary is, now I'm going to look for another job and put in my notice and leave, right? Looks different for different people.
Mm.
But again, remembering that if we don't honor our boundaries, it don't make a difference. And we're going to be the ones that are stuck in pain while everybody else continues to benefit.
That is so true. And I love that empowerment from you because it is a choice at the end. I keep hearing people saying that, oh, there's no choice. I have to do this. And I'm like, no, that decision that you made that you have no choice is a choice. There is way around things that you can make it happen. And I know that like times are tough, like people have their own reasons, but there's always way around it. Like, will you start looking before you resign from a job? Will you start doing this before you do that? There's always a ways to look behind it. What other support can you get? What other ways can you get? It's like that. I was just talking to someone about, we love to give support and advice, but we're not going to give you a handout. That's a really good term into doing that, and that's just wonderful. So after that we implement all of that, what are some of the expectation we could feel around it? Like, what does non-burnout look like? Because I know there are a lot of us that who are in burnout, even for me now, working crazy hours, that I do that little bit of sense like, oh, is there light at the end of the tunnel? So enlighten us. What does that look like?
So to bring it all together, self-care, like that's the umbrella that you want to now cover everything with, self-care. Because my burnout is an example outwardly that I have not been caring for myself enough. Have I been working too many hours? Have I not been eating right? Have I not been getting enough activity? Have I not been having quality time with the people I love? Have I been isolating too much, right? Not taking care of my mental health? Anything, any ways that it's showing up, it is the physical thing that we're noticing that shows us I haven't been caring for me enough. I haven't been prioritizing my well-being. So self-care does it, and again, wrapped in boundaries. Does it look like instead of me working from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., I'm going to shut down at 7? Because it may not be reasonable to all of a sudden say, I'm going to work 5 hours a day and this is going to be great, right? You may have to dial it back over time. So if you're working for yourself, you may have to work from 5 to 7. And then your goal each week is to cut off 10 minutes or 20 minutes to get yourself back to a normal working day. You may have to reconfigure your days and better strategize and better block your calendar into time blocks, right? I'm going to work on this activity here. I'm going to work on this activity there. If you're feeling like I'm burned out because I'm not getting enough physical activity, it may not be reasonable to expect yourself to go out there and run a marathon or walk 60 minutes every day. You may have to start with 5. But that 5 minutes walking around the block is going to make a difference, because tomorrow you might be able to do 5.5. And the next week you might be able to do 6 or 7. And then you keep building on that. And within a few weeks or a couple of months, now you're up to 60 because you've nurtured your body, heart's pumping better. Your heart's beating better, lungs pumping better. Now you're feeling good. You can go longer. It may not be reasonable to say, I'm going to detox and go on a fast. I'm going to cut everything out today. What you can say is, today, one less cup of coffee or one less soda.
Mm.
Today, I'm not going to go to the office of that coworker that just burns my butt and makes me want to scream and snap their head off. Today, I'm just going to send them that email, and I'm going to avoid physical contact with them at all possible to keep myself cool. If your spouse normally comes home in a bad mood, or your kids get on your nerves, guess what? Today, before I go in the house, I'm going to drive around for 20 minutes or go sit at the park and just get my zen on. Maybe I'm going to dance in the car and have my own private concert, or take myself to a movie, or go get some froyo or something. But I am going to intentionally take some time for me before I go deal with everybody else, right? Looks different for all of us, but it's about every single day doing something. And then you build on that, and you build on that, and you build on that. And 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, you look back and you realize it's a little better. My schedule's changed. I'm feeling better. My eating's changed. Because most people think, oh my God, I'm in burnout. I gotta rewrite the whole world tonight.
Yeah.
So self-care and be practical. Do what's within your budget. Do what's within your ability, because small, minute changes add up to mountains that you get to stand on.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Would love to actually learn more from you on that. And I'm definitely would love to have you back on during our
Absolutely.
Knowledge is Power workshop. That if you can walk us through on it, how to actually do it, do some activity with us. And I think that will be so beneficial for our community here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do it.
That sounds amazing. So is there one more things that you can share with us about before we wrap up today's session?
I would say, I want you to leave with this reminder. You've always been worthy. No matter what you've been through, no matter what has happened, no matter what mistakes you have made, you have always been worthy of the life that you envision and desire for yourself. And just because you're experiencing burnout or some challenges or struggles in life doesn't mean that everything that you desire isn't possible. It is. You're just learning that you've got to go about it a different way to get it, right? So remember that you're worthy of all that you desire.
Oh, that is so beautiful. That just gave me goosebumps there. Oh, thank you so much for this. Thank you again, Jasmine, for coming on to our show. It has been so beautiful speaking to you and learning from you. I look forward for our next interaction. And audience here, if you wanted to find out more, please stay tuned, because we will going to put on a webinar for you, talking deeply about burnout and how you can make a difference to your life right now. So thank you once again, Jasmine, and thank you, audience, for coming back in, listening to us, and I look forward to see you at the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
This episode is proudly sponsored by Martha Mock and Super Confident Coaching, superconfidentcoaching.com.